We are live on the Bullpen Podcast. It is divisional series week. I was going to say weekend, but it's not the week. It's the week. It's the middle of the week. Anyway, we're into the divisional series. Welcome in if you're joining us live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. If you're listening to us later on the podcast, thank you. And please like, subscribe, leave us a comment. If you want to be nice, great. If you want to say something nice about Adam and his Ducks hat, he's wearing an Anaheim Ducks hat today. So hockey officially starts today, so that's exciting for all the hockey fans out there because baseball is winding down, and if your team is not one of the remaining 8, as Adams and I aren't, then you are maybe moving on to football or basketball starts in a little while, or hockey. But we're here now. We're talking baseball. I'm your host, Chris Krogman. You can find me at ShyBears1985 on the Twitter machine. You can find my co-host, the smartest man in baseball podcasting, Mr. Adam Kunos, at Kunos19 on Twitter. You can find the show at The Bullpen Pod. You can find us on Facebook and YouTube as well. Same names. Find us on all your podcasts, Apple Pod, Spotify, blah, 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 blah. Adam, how are you tonight?
Doing very well. It's actually, we had, since the hurricane kind of came through Florida, we've actually had some gorgeous weather down here. It was actually cool enough this past weekend to actually got our fire pit out, had a fire, brought the big TV out, watched the movies, just sat outside with the fire down here. It got down to like the 60s down here, so it was like perfect weather for a fire down here. It's getting that time.
60s is fire weather.
Yeah, down here in Florida, it's fire weather.
You guys' blood is so thin that, like, man.
Okay,
60 is like barely hoodie weather in Denver. Barely.
It's funny you say it because since I've moved down here, my blood has thinned incredibly. When I was back in Chicago, 60, like, I'm in shorts and a t-shirt walking outside. It's nice out. I'm talking fire weather, maybe down to the 30s or 40 degrees outside. But it's like, since I've been down here in Florida, if it's 50, I will straight up freeze my ass off.
Dude, growing up in Arizona, I would wear like a big bulky jacket in the winter, and it was like 40. And I'm like, oh my God, it's so cold. So cold here. And then you move to a cold weather city, and it's nothing. Who is that? Max Muncy just hit a home run? Yeah. Max Muncy. Dodgers took the lead 2-1. Yeah. Anyway, so it's fall. Baseball is heating up, but it's cooling off outside. We're going to talk about the wild card shit show that I don't think Adam and I didn't get anything right. I think we're terrible at this.
I think there was one series we may have had right, but I think other than that, I think we completely missed on everything.
Yeah, which isn't good because we should have been more on top of the fact that the Guardians were hot and the Rays were not. But let's jump right into it, Adam, and talk wild card recap. Starting with that Tampa Bay Rays and Guardians. Should we have your wife on to ask her what happened to the Rays?
So she is not currently in the house right now. She's out running errands, but I can give you exact kind of play-by-play that happened. We were out to dinner with my brother-in-law and my sister. We were going to see a show at downtown Orlando that night, and we're going through. We're like in the car going like, okay, bottom of the 10th, bottom of the 11th. Okay, we're going into the 12th, going into the 14th. We sit down for dinner, and my sister puts her phone up where we can see the game, and all of a sudden she goes, game over. Guardians just walked off, and my wife goes, fuck. And I went, damn it. Yeah. I mean, that was – I will give a lot of praise to the Guardians. They have proven – they are continuing to prove doubters wrong on just how good they are this season. I mean, first of all, winning the Central when they only had 7% chance, more power to them. Taking on a damn good Rays team, squeaking out a 1-run win in game 1, and then the pitching matchup in game 2 was just absolutely phenomenal. It was definitely a pitcher's paradise if you were into pitching in baseball. I mean, McKenzie went 6 innings, 2 hits for the Guardians, struck out 8. Glasnow went 5 innings, struck out 5, only get 2 hits, and then the bullpens were just pretty much going at it. And then Corey Kluber was the one hiccup for the Rays as he gave up that game-winning homer on the second pitch in Cleveland that sent the Guardians to the division series.
And, Adam, looking back, somebody pointed it out on Twitter, like that the Rays more or less backed into the playoffs. And I was like, nah, man, the Rays are hot, or the Rays are good. And I'm looking back on it, man, they were 4-14 over their last 18 games, including losing 2, 4, 6, 7 in a row to end the season. We should have seen this coming, that they were just complete dog shit, including losing 2 out of 3, or sorry, not 2 out of, yeah. Anyway, they lost a lot, a whole lot.
They did, and
Cleveland was hot going into the last series. So, yeah, Cleveland was red hot, winning a bunch in September and into October. It was an easier schedule, but they had just beat the Rays 2 out of 3 in late September. So, like you said, hats off to Cleveland. Guardians are guarding the land, like we said. So, yeah, kudos. Can they beat the Yankees?
Yeah, that's gonna be the big question. They're going up against a damn good Yankee team. They lost game 1 yesterday, and we'll dive into a little more of that later. But now they definitely got their hands full going into the Bronx for the division series. Let's move on to the next series, and Chris, this is actually one series where we differed on. Mariners at Blue Jays. Game 1, Seattle blanked Toronto 4-0. And then game 2, Seattle had to come back to win this game. They were down, I believe, 7-1 or 8-1.
Yeah.
They came back to take a 9-8 lead, scored one more, and then they ended up beating Toronto 10-9, sweeping the Blue Jays right out of the playoffs, their first postseason win since 2001. I mean, for as bad as Seattle started at the beginning of the season, they are playing incredibly well. They're incredibly hot. And now they're going down to Houston, where they kind of gave Houston a good run for their money in game 1.
Yeah, Jordan Alvarez happened, though.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that guy's a fucking beast, the way he just...
He could have been MVP this year if he'd have stayed healthy the whole season.
Yeah.
But I mean, the biggest difference not the biggest difference, but Seattle trading for Luis Castillo was such a big move at the break. And that guy's phenomenal. I think he pitched game 1. Was it Ray in game 2? I can't remember, but
I looked it up real quick.
Seattle looked absolutely phenomenal. The fact that a Seattle team that wasn't scoring a ton of runs in the regular season was able to come back down like 7-1 or whatever it was, 8-1, and score. I watched a lot of that middle part of that game when they were still down 3 runs, and I can't remember who was up to bat, but I was like, I think I walked into my kitchen and came back, and it was 9-9. That's right, it was like 9-4 or something like that, and then they put up 5 runs in an inning, or I think it was something like that. But anyway, it was a hell of a game.
Yeah, and Castillo pitched game 1, and obviously that trade, I think everyone was talking about that trade on Twitter, on social media, or on like MLB Network. They're talking about how big of an impact that trade for Seattle has made. I mean, you had to think about without Luis Castillo, I don't think Seattle wins game 1. I think they maybe win game 2. I think that series goes to a game 3. But just to see how big of an impact Luis Castillo has had for that pitching staff, I mean, he gave a great performance just to kick off the playoffs, and I think he's pointing Seattle in the right direction.
Absolutely. He's a good pitcher. I mean, he was going to waste in Cincinnati, so glad to see him get out of that. I mean, half of Cincinnati is in Seattle now anyway, with like Suarez and Winkler. Winkler? Is that his name? Jesse Winker?
Yeah,
whatever.
I think that's it.
Fuck that guy anyway. He hates the Mets, so fuck him. No, he doesn't. He just has fun with the fans and flips them off all the time. So whatever. But yeah, congrats to Seattle. I thought it would be tough going into Toronto. Obviously, Toronto put up, an offensive onslaught to start game 2. It looked really ugly at first, and then Seattle showed up big in the middle innings and late in the game, and turned it around. We won 10-9. So kudos to them for sweeping the Blue Jays and putting up a hell of a fight in game 1, like you said, against the Astros, but we'll get into that later. Phillies Cardinals, did not see this coming.
No, we both had the Cardinals taking this series. I thought the Cardinals had it locked in game 1. They were going into the 9th inning. Going in the 9th inning with a 2-0 lead, and they had their bullpen has been shaky the entire season. All of a sudden, it just kind of imploded on them in the 9th inning. They gave up 6 runs, and they just that just put this series in a downhill spiral, in my opinion, for the Cardinals. They lose game 1 6-3, and then they come back and get shut out in game 2. Final score 2-0. I did not see the Phillies coming out of this series. I thought the Cardinals had a better staff and a better rotation going forward. I think something they're going to look at the offseason is that bullpen. I think that bullpen is now going to be a very big question for St. Louis going forward. But in all retrospect, this is an end of an era for the Cardinals. Those were the last games for Albert Pujols, Yadier Molina. They should be officially retiring once the season officially ends. So their careers have wrapped up. You can kind of see the emotion in Yadier Molina when he was giving his post-game interview, just kind of holding back the tears, and just how much the city of St. Louis has meant to him, how much the organization has meant to him. Having Pujols back on team for this final season. I mean, you gotta think that both those players are Hall of Famers. They're obviously going to go into the Cardinals Hall of Fame. Retired numbers for the Cardinals, and just every honor you can think of for that organization, they'll probably get.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
Cardinals are another organization that I'm like, you've had a long enough winning streak. Congrats to Yadier and Waney and Pujols on wonderful careers. I'm sure you'll be in the Hall of Fame and all that fun stuff. But couldn't get it done against the Phils, man. Unbelievable. But I mean, we talked about this months ago, where I from the beginning of the year, I said if the Phillies, got into the playoffs, they would be dangerous. I thought that their pitching staff would be better throughout the year than they've been. With Wheeler and Nola and Gibson, but still a great 1-2 with Wheeler and Nola that took it to St. Louis and was able to win that series for them. So we'll see how the Phillies Braves shake out. Big NL East matchup all year. Let's see how that. I'm sure the Braves had the series. Braves had the season series 11-8, so not that big of a difference. Only a 3-game split between those two teams. So we'll see what shakes out there. And then getting into the last series of the past weekend, the Padres go into New York, take game one, 7-1. Yu Darvish pitched fantastic. Max Scherzer looked like he was still suffering a little bit from that oblique injury. Really, second year in a row, he's kind of broken down in the playoffs. He's 38 years old. You know, he takes care of his body pretty well, but uh, you put on the grind all year long, it's gonna wear on you. So he got tattooed by the bottom of the Padres lineup. To be honest, Trent Grisham hit a home run. Machado hit one, but the other big one was God, I can't even remember. Anyway, so the bottom of the Padres lineup pretty much ate up the Mets. The first game, second game, it was Jake DeGrom. Also, kind of got tattooed a little bit in the first few innings. I think San Diego was up 3-1 or 3-2, and then Mets had like a 5-run inning, ended up winning 7-3. Padres win game 3 against Chris Bassett 6-0. So I think the big question in New York is going to be that offense and what happens with this staff. Jake DeGrom's a free agent. Diaz is a free agent. Nemo's a free agent. Bassett's a free agent. So there could be a bunch of changes in New York, but with an owner like Cohen, you never know what kind of money he's going to spend. So Mets, they totally messed this up since September. They should have never been in this situation, being in first place in the East for 175 days, and they just choked in September, for being honest.
Yeah, and I'll give you a fun little fact. My brother-in-law flew up to New York over this past weekend. He was actually at Game 3 for the Mets. We were talking on Saturday before he left, saying like if the Mets were to win, he would be at Game 3. And sure enough, him and his brother were at Game 3. Hate that they had to go up and see a complete, not gonna say a complete disaster, but just a bad game overall by the Mets. And Chris, I completely agree with you. The way the Mets played this entire year, they should have never been in that situation to begin with. They should have never been in that wild card series. They pretty much had that NL East under control for again about 170 plus days, and then they just kind of they pretty much gave that division to Atlanta. Unfortunately, the season-ending sweep that they were given by the Braves that's really put that team, not gonna say in a downward spiral, but just kind of set the tone for them finishing out the season.
Well, and Pete Alonso said it, at the end of the year, they didn't lose that division during that Braves series. They lost it 2 weeks prior when they got swept by the Cubs, when they lost 2 out of 3 to Washington, when they, couldn't beat bad teams. Yeah. So I don't want to say they completely played down to their competition, but that offense relies very heavily on Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso, and when those guys aren't clicking, they're not scoring. And you can tell when Pete's on and he's hitting home runs and he's getting on base, and but there's like very little protection in that lineup. Daniel Vogelbach and Darren Ruff were additions at the break that just weren't it. That was not good enough to manifest offense in this lineup. They kept trying to stick with small ball, and it's not going to work in the playoffs. You have to be able to hit the long ball. You have to be able to score runs. And it wasn't working. The on base and getting and moving guys station to station, it just takes too many things to click. You can have I think a mixture of both is really what is good in today's game. Get guys on base, hit the long ball. Get guys on base, hit the long ball. And that's kind of like the old adage that the 3-run homer is what people play for. So Mets are going to have to do some soul searching on how they want to construct this roster, what their how they're going to use their young talent coming up. They had, Brett Beatty made his debut late in the season. He's a top prospect for them. Francisco Alvarez is a top prospect in baseball, top 5 in baseball. So we'll see how they, if he's going to be the DH next year or if they continue forward with this Vogel Black and rough as shit. It was bad. I just don't want to. It's just so Mets, man. It's just so fucking Mets.
And I mean, I thought Soxer was bad after the season they had. I took a dip into the Mets Twitter feed. I just did like hashtag Mets and NL wildcard. Holy shit, were they roasting that team online? Fans were not shy about what they were saying online.
Well, and Mets fans are generally pessimistic anyway because they've seen so many collapses. And this year there's a lot of positive Mets Twitter, and those guys try to balance it out, but it's like when the pessimism wins out and they don't actually do it, it's hard not to just continue to be that pessimistic fan that watches this team collapse. And you thought, with Buck, it would be different. And he made some very odd bullpen decisions all year long. And that's kind of been Buck's Achilles heel throughout his career. We saw him do it in Baltimore, not using his closer the way he probably should have in the playoffs in Baltimore. He trusts certain guys that it's very odd to understand why he trusts them. Bullpen's another thing the Mets are going to have to address. There could be a completely different team in New York next year. So it'll be interesting. I think this was probably their best really good shot with 2 top-tier pitchers, but both those guys kind of fucking choked, to be honest, down the stretch. So whatever.
It is what it is, unfortunately.
Moving on.
Before we get into the division series, we are going to talk about a contract extension that happened for Rob Thomas in Philly. He got extended for 2 years in Philadelphia, so he will be staying on as the Phillies manager. I like
Thompson. It's
Thompson, sorry.
Dude, I'm like, wait, the guy from what's that band?
Rob Thompson. Oh yeah. One thing I will say, I do like this extension for Philadelphia. I think they found someone who I think kind of fits that Philly team right now, who kind of has a good grasp of how to mold that team moving forward. He came in a very difficult situation after Joe Girardi was let go very early in the season. He was the first manager to get fired when the Phillies decided to let him go, and he has turned that team around.
How many didn't they win like 7 or 8 in a row right after he took over?
Yeah, I think it was like 8 or 9 in a row where they just started winning. They didn't make any real runs towards the Braves or the Mets, but they played well enough just to stay above that wild card into the wild card race, and they were able to hold on a Brewers team that was trying to make a late season charge. So again, hats off to the Phillies and the season they have. They're still kicking, and congrats on this extension. I think it's well deserved in my opinion.
Fuck them.
No, that too.
Fuck them and the Braves. And not the Padres.
Padres. Is it just fuck the NL East except for the Mets?
The Marlins never bothered me. I love Sandy Alcantara, and I've never really been bothered by the Marlins. They've always been that team that wins a World Series and then blows it up and then does it again in 5 years, and it's just like, man, that's impressive.
Was it don't fix what's not broken? I mean, I guess that's how it works for the Marlins. You win a World Series, blow it up, and then
if it's not broke, don't fix it. Not whatever you said.
That's pretty much the Marlins right there. Do what the hell you want, it's gonna work.
Seems like it. Unless you get bought by Derek Jeter, then you're.
Ooh, fair enough. Fair enough.
But once he left, it was fine again. So I don't know if you saw this, but Sandy Alcantara put something out about, thanks Marlins fans, I love you, blah blah blah. We'll see you next year or whatever. Starling Marte said, "I'm bringing you to the Mets," and I was like, "All right."
I saw that too. I was like, "Ooh, all right, we're starting early.
That's just straight recruiting. That's not even like hinting at it. That's just like, hey,
he's not hiding it. He's not hiding
play
it
here. Yeah. Well, we saw. Was it Marte and Soto at the
Marte and Soto at the All-Star break? They were chatting up. They said
they're cousins or whatever. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, fuck, man, Sandy would be a great replacement for DeGrom if DeGrom decides to option out, which it's pretty certain he's going to do. And who knows if they give him an extension. But we're not here to talk about the Mets anymore or the White Sox or any other team that's not in the playoffs anymore. So, we'll start in the American League since we started in the American League for the wild card. Starting with the Guardians are in New York against the Yankees. Garrett Cole pitched game 1 for the Yankees. Who pitched for the Guardians?
Quantrill pitched for the Guardians.
That's right. Cal Quantrill pitched for the Guardians. Yankees win 4-1. Cole had a great game. Rizzo hit a 2-run shot, I believe. So hats off to the New York Yankees. They were off for 5-6 days. No real rust from them, other than that they only scored 4 runs. Did you see Aaron Judge steal second in that game, Adam, by chance?
He did what now?
Aaron Judge stole second, and he looked like he was hauling a piano behind him. I thought he was kind of faster because he plays center, but man, he looked slower than dog shit. He was like, and he slides feet first, and the ball bounced off of him because he's a ginormous human being, and it was interesting. And then he took off for third, so it was good though.
Good
I think
for him.
The Yankees are one of those teams that I think we talked about this earlier in the year, where they use analytics in their stolen base making decisions, and they're one of the best at it. They're not like the fastest team in baseball, but they steal a lot of bases because they just know situational when to do it.
It's situational baseball. You have to have a manager who understands more the in and outs the game of when the bunt, when to steal, when to put a shift on, or when to pitch around somebody, or you have to have a manager who is just pretty much picking that opposite lineup apart, inning by inning. In my opinion.
I think, with the rule changes next year with the pitch clock and the pitch and the throw over rules, we're going to see a lot more stolen bases. And I alluded to this a little bit with the bigger bases and guys being able to steal more just because there's a larger surface to slide into. Not that it shortens the base pass at all, but it does give you more surface area to kind of manipulate that slide. But the guy can only throw over twice. So that, to me, that puts a ton of pressure on the pitcher when to strategically use those throw overs. And once he's thrown over twice, it's free reign. He cannot throw over again. You can just get as big a lead as you want and take off.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how these rule changes play in next year. With let's say you get the pitcher to throw over twice, that he can't throw over again. So I think you're going to see a lot more runners trying to get more into the minds of the pitchers, trying to force them to throw over, or try to force them to throw a pick off the first, try to waste that throw over. So I'm looking forward to that because it's going to be a lot more situational baseball next year, in my opinion, and with all these rule changes. And you have the pitch clock, which comes in handy, and I guess the batter clock as well, just for how long players have to take to get in the box and get set for a pitch.
Batters, so for the pitchers that are going to, be mentally challenged by all of that and be, stressed by all of the, mind games that batters and base runners can play. It's going to be interesting. I mean, I think it completely is advantageous for the offense. And then the defense loses the shift as well. So once again, they're creating offensive advantages, we'll call them, more advantageous to the batters than the pitchers. But once pitchers get used to it, I think it swings the other direction. And the quicker pitchers work naturally, the teams that work better, or the pitchers that work faster naturally, are typically better pitchers, typically do better. Anyway, so yeah, it'll be fun.
No, I agree with that on that one. And a lot of these pitchers that we'll see are to come up have used the pitch clock. So we can't forget that a lot of these minor league pitchers are used to a pitch clock. So it's not going to be any changes for them. It's going to be all these veteran pitchers who've been in the league for the last 3-4 years who have to get used to a pitch clock. So again, it's going to be fun to see going into next year. Chris, our next series, Houston, Seattle. So, you ready for this? Going into the bottom of the ninth, Houston had a win probability of 4.4% after Jose Altuve was struck out swinging to put the Astros 1 out away from going down 0-1. Then Yordan Alvarez comes up, and what does he do with 2 strikes on him? He walks off. Smashes a
3-run home run. Yeah.
Exactly. Houston's win percentage jumped by 91%. Obviously, with the 3-run homer, you're going to win. But just what an ending to that game to kick off that series, because that series is going to be a dogfight with the way these two teams have gone at it towards the end of the season.
So as we've talked about many times on this podcast, I like to throw some money around with
you
Vegas.
You did, didn't you?
I had like $5 or no, maybe like I had like $5 left in my MGM account. So they had a boost, which is typically a trap, because whenever they boost some parlay or some event, it's usually because they think it's going to go the other way. So they had pretty much an all favorites boost of Houston to win, the Dodgers to win, and the Yankees to win. And so, the day starts off and Seattle's kicking the shit out of Houston. I'm like, well, this is over. Parlay's done. I'm not going to win any money. And then Houston wins, and I'm like, sweet. The other one's just got to happen. And then the Yankees were up like 2-1 at the time. Or I think that it was like right after the Rizzo homer. So I was like, well, that game looks good. And then the next time I checked on the Dodgers, they were at 5. Or no, the Dodgers went up 5-0. And then I think I ended up winning like 5-3. I went to bed and it was 5-3. So, ended up winning that money. So I have a little bit of money in my MGM account again. So that'll be gone soon, I'm sure. But, that was fun for me. I enjoyed that walk-off win by the Astros. Plus, I had Yordan Alvarez on my fantasy team this year in baseball, so I love that dude. He crushes the ball.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this at the start of the show. He would be in the MVP running had he not been injured. Had he not spent some time on the IL, he'd probably be a top candidate for MVP in the American League this year.
Yeah, I don't think Judge was going to get beat, but hitting 62. But Alvarez would have at least been in the conversation most of the season had he stayed healthy, considering what Houston did and like when the Yankees went on a complete, mid-season collapse. It would have been in the conversation. So yeah, that was a fun series, fun first game for Houston and Seattle. Seattle's going to be tough. They're going to be a tough out. They came out hot and ready. A win like that or a loss like that for Seattle, we'll see how they respond. Having a comeback win in these playoffs and a comeback loss in these playoffs we'll see how Seattle bounces back, how they handle the pressure of that first game loss. But moving over to the National League, Phillies at the Braves. Phillies took game 1 7-6. I didn't get to see much of this game. What did you get to watch this game, Adam?
I caught a little beginning of it, but I didn't get the chance to see. I'll give Philly. Philly just came out swinging on all cylinders for this one. I'm looking at the team comparisons. It's pretty much even down the line. The only thing that the Phillies really did was out-hit the Braves. They left fewer runners. Braves had more total bases. They left 8 to 9 runners on base, no stolen bases. Braves did have 2 homers, but it was just the Phillies offense that more clicked on this game. And I think Philadelphia was just taking that momentum that they took from the Cardinals series, and they took it with them in the game 1. I mean, Castellanos went 3 for 5 with a double, 3 RBIs and a run. Olsen had a pretty good game as well. Home run, 2 walks, 3 ribbies, and 2 runs.
Yeah, Max Fried kind of got tattooed.
Mm-hmm.
8 hits, 6 runs, 4 earned, 10.8 ERA. Ranger Suarez, man, we talked about this guy multiple times this year. It's so funny with the playoffs. But he pitched 3 innings, but he walked 5 people, struck out 5, gave up a home run, 2.7 ERA. But damn, 5 walks in 3 innings, that's freaking nuts.
Yeah, it is interesting, and I mean I will give it to the Braves. They did make it interesting towards the end of the game. They get a couple runs back towards the end of the game and kind of make it interesting. But unfortunately, they fall short.
It's 7-3 going into the ninth, and they scored 3 in the bottom of the ninth, so they had a shot.
Yeah, I mean, currently right now they're in the top of the 8th of game 2. Braves are currently up 3-0, and that's going into the top of the 8th right now. So at this point right now, the Braves look like they could even the series at 1-1, barring a Philadelphia comeback in the next 2 innings. So we'll see how that game plays out.
Yeah, it's that'll be. I think this is going to be one of the better series with these two division rivals. Final series is another division rivalry. San Diego Padres at the Dodgers. Dodgers, like I mentioned earlier, won the first game 5-3. Currently, it's
a 3-3 tie right now.
3-3 tie, and this should be another interesting series with the Dodgers. See if the Dodgers can hold up, right? Dodgers tend to collapse in the playoffs at some point, so be a good game. Did you? I watched some of game 1, like I mentioned. When the Padres started to come back, they put up 3, I think, in was it 4th inning or something like that? I had it up earlier.
I caught the beginning of the game, but unfortunately, I just kind of exhaustion kind of kicked in after that. I kind of wasn't able to make it through the rest of the game, unfortunately. But I did wake up. I watched the highlights. Dodgers had that game pretty much from start to finish after watching the highlights. Currently getting the in-game progress. It's a 3-3 tie right now. Both Padres and Dodgers are in the bottom of the 3rd. Pitch count is something I always look at different in the playoffs. Yu Darvish right now is already thrown 57 pitches through 3 innings. I always look at pitch count as something of a little bit of a Achilles heel for pitchers going into the postseason. Because I don't know if it's just they're taking more time with batters or batters are being a little more patient in the postseason. But pitch counts always seem to fluctuate within 3 innings. You're seeing maybe 60, 70 pitches within 3 to 4 innings. And bullpens are getting taxed a lot starting in the 5th inning, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely a shorter leash in the playoffs for starting pitchers. I think you hit the nail on the head. Batters are much more patient. Pitchers are also probably trying to get outs with worse pitches or pitching more pitches out of the strike zone, trying to get guys to chase. Obviously, you have teams that are very talented, trying to work pitchers' counts, get into those bullpens where teams are typically weaker. Um, but yeah, it's the playoffs, man, and these guys don't really care how many pitches they throw. So if it's going well, then they'll just keep them out there for 100 and 110 pitches. Man, Trey Turner's on fire.
Yeah, I agree. Trey Turner's on fire. Chris, I know this can be we're already game in, but let's go ahead and give our picks. And we actually tweet out 4 polls on who would win for our viewers to pick who would win each division series. Let's start with the Mariners Astros. Our viewers, listeners, overwhelmingly picked the Mariners 67% to win over the Astros. You're shaking your head as in disbelief to our loyal followers that they were wrong in this pick.
Not just like
it could be closer. It's gonna be closer than I think.
Look, Adam, all of your we all know how much of a big Mariners fan you are. So
Closet, you caught me.
Just going out and creating all of those burner accounts to follow the Bullpen podcast and vote for the Mariners is really going above and beyond, man. So kudos to you, kudos.
Hey, my cats are a huge Mariner fan, so don't diss.
Adam's Cats at Adam's Cats is the follow. So yeah, no, Houston's gonna win this series. They got the trash cans, dude.
All right, so you're picking Houston. Obviously,
this dude's over here typing. I can hear it. He's typing in my picks again. Don't listen to me though. I fucked up the entire first round.
Give me a number of games. You think the Houston can complete a sweep, or you think it can go 4 or 5?
What's the back and I hate these travel schedules because I can.
So it's going to be 2 in Houston. Travel day, 2 in Seattle. Travel day, 1 back in Houston.
4 games.
4 games?
Yep. That'll make it back to Houston.
I'm also going to pick Houston. I say they do make it back to Houston. I think this series goes a full 5 games.
Ooh. But like again, I said, I just don't think Seattle's offense can keep up.
No, I mean, I do agree that Seattle has a good offense, but we saw yesterday when you put Houston in the corner, they'll find a way just to edge out a win, and the offense that they have pretty much proved it yesterday.
That lineup top to bottom it can rival the Braves.
It can, and
I mean not the Braves, the Dodgers. Sorry,
Dodgers. I mean, but again, we saw this lineup, almost the exact lineup last year, kind of falter against the Braves in the World Series. So we shall see what happens.
I think Atlanta, like Ted Turner made a deal with the devil or something.
Oh, I'm sure he did. I'm
pretty sure that's why Atlanta's been good for like forever. But 2 World Series in like 30 years. I mean, I know they have 1 more recently than the Mets, 2 more recently than the Mets. So whatever, Braves fan, chop on. What series do you want to go to next? You want to go to New York and Cleveland?
Yeah, let's go to New York and Cleveland. Obviously, New York wins the first one. Everyone voted that this series is a split, so I don't know how you tie in a division series. So they are split down the middle for these teams both advancing. So,
well, it's a poll, bro.
The poll is
50-50.
It did. That poll went 50-50. It was a 50-50 result on it. So as much as I want to say Cleveland's still going to ride this momentum after that walk-off against Tampa, I think New York is the better team. I think the Yankees are the better team in this series. So I'll give the Yankees the 3-1. I'll give the Guardians one win, but I think New York gets a 3-1.
Yeah, I think they sweep them. I don't think the Guardians are. They're not right. They're not there yet. It'll depend on where McKenzie and Bieber hit. If they're like, if one of them, like if Bieber pitches tomorrow in New York, I think he'll lose, and then Tristan gets Game 3 at home. I still don't think it's going to be enough. So, yeah, I think Yankees sweep 3-0.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, Cleveland's a good team, but I don't think they have enough to get over the Yankee lineup, the pitching, and Cleveland is a very young team that I think is playing well ahead of where we thought they're going to be playing for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I think the Yankees can do that. A lot of people ask, like, with Phillies Braves, who are the Mets fans rooting for? So younger Mets fans, I think, hate the Phillies more, but I don't think they really understand what the Braves did to the Mets in the 90s and 2000s and how sucked our souls out. So I'm rooting for the Phillies because I don't think the Phillies could get past either LA or San Diego. So I'm going to go with the Phillies 3-2.
Okay. Yeah.
They stole Game 1. I think that they can get both of them in Philadelphia, or not both of them in Philadelphia. I think that they can win in 5.
Yeah, and you bring up a good point. I think a lot of younger Mets fans don't realize how heated this rivalry was in like the late 90s, early 2000s, just with these two teams going back and forth. I mean, these teams did meet in the postseason, I believe, in 1999 and 2000 in consecutive years. The Braves got the best of them in 99, and the Mets got the best of them back in 2000. So these teams do have a lot of good postseason history. I'm going to go 3-2, but I'm going to be the devil's advocate to you. I'm going to pick Atlanta 3-2. I think
that probably will, but
yeah.
I don't want to. I mean, I don't like Atlanta at all.
But I think Atlanta will have a tough series against Philadelphia. I think they will run into some trouble. I think Philly will kind of show some flaws in that team that we thought was just lights out from last year going into this year. I think Philadelphia is going to expose some flaws in that team.
I mean, Atlanta's a completely different team than last year. I mean, they're young. Like Acuna wasn't on that team last year. Essentially, got hurt. They didn't have the same kind of pitching that they have this year. Strider wasn't on that team. Harris wasn't on that team. The young second baseman wasn't on that team. Shit, dude, Albies is out, and he hasn't even been playing. So Atlanta's a lot different in that they're young and, pretty much straight superstars everywhere. So it's pretty annoying, but we're going to see them fall apart. Collapse before our eyes. Just kidding. We'll see.
There you go. Mets fans, I guess, can only hope. Well, I mean, it's pretty much.
They don't care. I'm rooting for the weather.
It's the lesser of two evils. Which team do you not hate the most?
I mean, I know like the Phillies, like when Ryan Howard and Chase Utley were there, were a giant thorn in the Mets side, but like it felt like short-lived for me. I don't know, maybe not, but
no, I'll agree with you on that
at that point in time. So
no, I'll agree with you on that because NL East breakdown. The Braves ended their division title run in their last of the 14 consecutive ended in 2005. Mets go on to win the division in 2006, and then that's where the Phillies start their NL East dominance. They go on to win 5 straight starting in 07. So, and that was again Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins on that team. You bring in Matt Holliday for that team. Roy Oswald towards the end of that run as well. So I can see that.
Yeah. Like you said, fuck them both.
Yeah, exactly.
Padres, Dodgers. So my wife's family is all Padres fans. So I'll be rooting for the. Oh, Jesus. Oh, never mind. I thought Muncie just hit another one. Warning track power. So Dodgers took the first one 5-3. It's currently tied 3-3, so it's a good game 2. I still think the Dodgers end up winning this series, but I'm rooting for the Padres. I'm gonna say Dodgers win 3-2.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to pick against the Dodgers. They've just been so consistent in the regular season, inconsistent in the playoffs. You just don't know which team you're going to get. And I think it was kind of funny that they go out, they trade for Craig Kimbrell to be their closer, that closing pitcher that's going to help them, and he gets left off the Division Series roster. So I kind of had a personal laugh at that myself.
Well, I mean, do you think it's because the last time we saw Kimbrel, he was walking in the winning run for the Padres?
I mean,
with against these two teams, or with these two teams, the last time Kimbrel pitched, he walked in the winning run for the Padres that basically kept him in the playoffs.
I'm not gonna say that's one of the key factors, but I'm gonna say that Kimbrel has not been the same pitcher since he was traded to the White Sox last year. When he was with the Cubs, he was lights out with the Cubs. I mean, his ERA was low. He was closing games left and right. He goes over to the White Sox. He transitions from a closer role to a setup man, and he is not a setup man. He was a true closer from his time in Boston, going into Chicago. He is a closer, and I think just trying to transition back into that closer role was a bit of a struggle for him.
Relief pitchers are fickle, man.
They are. It's hard. I mean,
being a Mets fan, you've seen Edwin Diaz go from elite the first year he came over from Seattle to just absolutely terrible. The next year to back to elite again. This year he was best closer in baseball. So
yeah,
the closing is hard. It's takes a certain mindset. So, Kimbrel hopefully bounces back next year. If he doesn't make the playoffs, or if we don't see him in the playoffs at all this year, maybe he should stop, raising his arm up like that. And
that little
looking goofy before he pitches.
Yeah. I'm going to pick Los Angeles 3-1 in this series. I think the Dodgers finish the series off in San Diego.
Well, all right. It's too bad Tatis fucked it up for the Pods.
I would love to see. I mean, again, the what if Tatis was back in the Padres lineup right now? How would Game 1 go a little different? Would the wild card series go? Would the Padres be more effective in the wild card series? But again, he fucked it up. He's out. He won't be back until mid-2023. So right now, the Padres are doing what they can do best without him.
Yeah, dude, man, Soto, Machado, and fucking Tatis, Jesus.
That's a murderer's row right there.
Oh, well. It is what it is.
That is. So, like we said, the division series is underway. They're going to be playing throughout the weekend. Your league championship series will start next week. So by this time next week, we should be wrapping up the division series and previewing the league championship series in each league. I can give you the day on when we think those will start. So October 19th is when the NLCS is slated to start. So
Next Wednesday.
That's next Wednesday. So when we are back, we'll be giving you a NLCS preview and ALCS preview.
All right, let's go.
Absolutely.
Well, folks, don't forget to follow the podcast where you find all of your podcasts on Apple Pods, Spotify Pod. Follow us on Twitter at ShyBears1985, at Kunos19. Click on our link tree, jump to Fanatics, buy all of your LDS gear and ALCS gear, NLCS gear if you get there. Celebrate your wins of your teams. If you are a fan of the Padres or Dodgers or Braves or Phillies or Guardians, you had a great year so far. Yankees fans, you probably own enough Yankee shit. Mariners fans, definitely go buy some shit. It's been a great year. Astros fans, yeah. Well, folks, thanks for joining us tonight. It's been awesome. Adam and I look forward to bringing you the Championship Series previews next week. Until then, have a good night.
Have a good night, everyone.